I'm Chuck Walenick. I'm a reenactor. And for 36 years in the classroom, I used reenactment to bring the subject to life for my students. I would dress in the garb. I would have the music playing in the classroom that was the music of the time period and culture. And I would just try to immerse them in these living, breathing cultures instead of relegating history to let's look up the dead people in the back of the book and identify them. Well, I'm not in the classroom anymore. And I ended up repurposing myself, realized that I wanted to record bits of history that are going away. And I like playing history detective. So here I am, repurposing the garb that I have in the house. And there's a lot of it that I picked up after 36 years of teaching. And there's the passion that I have for bringing the subject to life, bringing history to life. That's why I do historical reenactment on the weekends. I want to record and document these sites that can go away, because landmarks do go away. I've been discovering this. And I like to play history detective and connect the dots. So the repurposed me is now engaged in a very pretentious sounding Mission Odyssey, where I intend to visit each of the sites of Alta California that I can find, and while in garb, not costumes, I tell the tale of each place and create a visual record. Well, what I'm doing today is I am on my way to visit the last of the missions in Alta California. They were created along the Camino Real, and that would be Mission San Francisco Solano, the only mission that was created by the Mexicans rather than the Spanish. So I hope you stick with me on my journey. So here we are at what people will say is the end of the mission trail in Alta California. And it is the last mission to be built. This is Mission San Francisco Solano. But there's a couple of other places that I'm going to have to mention later. So, 1819, Padre Jose Altamira comes from Spain, and he is assigned to Mission Dolores. And he proposes a plan that there should be another mission north of the bay. Never mind that there's already a mission or an asistencia at San Rafael. And that was set up for a lot of the ill neophytes so they could recover in a better climate. Well, Altamira is using the same argument, and the Father Presidente of the missions, Padre Saria, basically shot the plan down and said, no, let's not do this, because he wanted to set up this mission and he wanted to shut down Mission Dolores, which was already suffering population loss, and the Asistencia San Rafael. He felt that things should be concentrated at Mission Francisco Solano. Well, he was told no. Okay, if Mom says no, go to Dad. So what he did is Altamira went to the governor and proposed a plan. And basically the governor's going to let him kind of wander around while searching for a site to slow down Russian incursion. At least that was the argument that Padre Altamira used on the governor. He checked out the Petaluma area as a possible site for the mission and decided there wasn't enough water there, and in looking further he felt that the Sonoma area offered better resources as far as water and as far as a longer growing season. So on July 4th, 1823, this last of the California missions, built under Mexican auspices, is consecrated. So now that Mission San Francisco Solano exists, and there were like 400 neophytes that came from Mission Dolores and were transferred over to Solano, Padre Altamira again raises the issue that he thinks that Mission Dolores and Mission San Rafael ought to get shut down, and everything just simply concentrated on this mission. And Padre Amoros of Mission San Rafael got involved in this big, major, ugly argument. Again, it's decided, no, all three missions are going to exist. Just let them be. Besides, I think people felt that the mission era was coming to an end. So who were the native Californians that were coming to this mission? There were Coast Miwok, there were Homo, Susunis, Wapo, and Patwin. Besides the 400 original neophytes who were sent from Mission Dolores, so they would probably be Ohlone. Also, other neophytes were being sent from Mission San Jose and Mission San Rafael. At the mission established at the site of the village of Huchi, the neophytes joining San Francisco Solano and those transferred from the other missions represented 35 different tribes. The highest mission population achieved 9 years after the founding was about 1,000. The first church was a building of poles plastered with mud, wattle and daub construction, in approximately the same location as the existing chapel, at the west end of the convento. The convento, the single row of rooms which today houses exhibits, was originally a 27-room convento, twice as deep, with a second row of rooms behind the first, with quarters for the priests and guests of the mission. The rest of the buildings, arranged around a large square courtyard and a well, had workshops where the Indians were taught to be craftsmen. Along the back of the courtyard were the living quarters and workrooms for the young Indian girls. In addition, outside the mission compound, there were orchards, walled vineyards, a grist mill, houses for the soldiers, a jail, a cemetery, actually 2 cemeteries, and an infirmary. The second church was a huge adobe building at the opposite or east end of the convento, constructed between 1827 and 1832. It was reported to be over 150 feet long, over 30 feet wide, 30 feet tall. The adobe chapel at the west end of the complex is not the mission's first church, it's now the third church. In the mission era, San Francisco Solano's traditional quadrangle was adjacent to a Mexican-style town square, the largest in Alta California, around which the town of Sonoma later developed, and which is still the heart of downtown Sonoma. You had to give Padre Altamira some credit as far as his energy and enthusiasm. One of the things he ended up doing was, within a year of the mission being established, he created an Asistencia, Santa Eulalia, that was over by the Fairfield area. There was ample water from a spring a quarter of a mile northeast of the mission complex. The output between the mission's founding and 1832 was only about 14,000 bushels of grain and produce. An official U.S. land survey shows that there was a large mission vineyard northeast of the quadrangle. However, San Francisco Solano only operated for 11 years before it was secularized, and so it did not have time to fully develop its agriculture. Over 10,000 acres of land were being used to raise crops, sheep, and cattle, with 1,000 Indians in residence. Fully half of the neophytes were kept busy looking after the 5,000 sheep, 3,500 head of cattle, and 900 horses. But the mission's total of animals in 1832 was the smallest in the mission chain. Padre Altamira had a lot of energy. Unfortunately, he didn't play well with others, because some of that energy ended up being devoted to flogging neophytes and imprisoning some of them in order to civilize them. And after 3 years, enough resentment built up that Native Californians went on the attack. They attacked the mission, causing Padre Altamira to flee. Part of the, things were burned, things were stolen, and Padre Altamira is sitting at Mission San Rafael for refuge. He ends up asking to be transferred to another mission, I guess because he had no desire to come back here. And he was denied, so he eventually went to Spain. His replacement was Father Buenaventura Fortuny, and he was a much kinder man and really energetic, and really made the mission prosper. In 1834, secularization hits, and in 1835, General Mariano Vallejo, he's placed in charge of, he's given a title Director of Colonization, and what he starts doing is he starts distributing a lot of the movable property, including livestock, to the Indians. And those neophytes who received property were being so harassed by non-Christian Indians that they gladly placed their herds under Vallejo's charge. And he was very happy with that, because he's going to add those to his herds already. And he's going to establish a 44,000 acre rancho out of these mission lands. Behold, the 2-story structure that was the centerpiece of General Mariano Vallejo's Rancho Petaluma. 44,000 acres worth of land that was granted to him. It actually grew to 66,000 acres, or 100 square miles. He chose a hilltop for his Petaluma Adobe rancho and factory. The operation needed to be large in order to support Vallejo's military command in Sonoma, as they did not receive adequate support from the government. Serving as the center of his working rancho for 10 years, the Adobe was designed to function as both a headquarters for a working ranch and as a defensive structure against attack by Russians or by the borderland native tribes. It had consisted originally of two-story buildings, built of a combination of adobe bricks and redwood timbers and planks surrounding an open courtyard. The wide covered second-story veranda encased and protected the adobe walls from the weather and provided firing positions in case of an attack. There were large gates located between the buildings on the south and north sides of the quadrangle. Instead of smaller outbuildings, workshops were on the ground floor of the 2 main buildings, which included a tannery, smithy, and a grist mill powered by Adobe Creek. 3,000 head of cattle were slaughtered each year to provide the rancho's main products, hides and tallow. The workshops produced candles, soap, thousands of wool blankets, boots and shoes for military troops under Vallejo's command, and saddles were manufactured by native artisans in rancho shops. There were between 600 to 2,000 people working at the Adobe, but not all of them lived within the buildings. There was a Native American village adjacent to the creek. The workers of higher status and supervisors would live in the building. The second floor of the fort, as Vallejo called it, housed Vallejo's office, the sleeping room for the ranch manager, guest rooms, communal sleeping areas for the most privileged workers, and the family's sleeping rooms when they came to visit. Vallejo is doing pretty well for himself. He is in charge of the areas north of the bay. He's overseeing secularization. He's acquiring herds of cattle, both from San Francisco Solano, and also from San Rafael. And he's laid out the town of Sonoma. He's also had new Presidio built right next door to the Mission, and takes troops, basically takes everybody from the Presidio at San Francisco and moves them up to this barracks, this Presidio. And he's doing pretty well for himself until the Americans show up. On June 14th, 1846, American settlers raised the grizzly bear flag directly across from Mission San Francisco Solano, declaring California to be a republic. The bear flaggers would be joined by John C. Fremont and his troops. California would never be the same. So, yeah, I'm not in my Explorer. Well, here we are so far. We have 21 missions accomplished. We have 9 asistencias done. A couple of estancias. 4 of the presidios are out of the way. And now it's on to the Presidio of Sonoma, which is right across the street that way. I hope you stick with me on my journey.